After what was a memorable AFL season full of many exciting moments, the season is about to conclude with one of the most exciting grand finals in recent years. The Sydney Swans will be looking to redeem themselves after that heartbreaking 2014 grand final loss to the Hawks. While for the Western Bulldogs, they will be playing in their first grand final since 1961. They've had to suffer 55 years of heartbreak, pain and absolutely gutted defeats. So, who will win? This is a special grand final edition of the ultimate AFL show. Hello footy fans, welcome to probably the biggest episode of the Ultimate AFL Show for season 2016. This is episode 32 and well, it's all about the grand final, the 2016 AFL Grand Final between the Sydney Swans and the Western Bulldogs. It is going to be an absolutely exciting, maybe memorable grand final because, well, these are two teams who have fought it out in the last couple of years, in two games in the last couple of years, and they've both been crackers. But also the way they've got there has been interesting as well. So looking forward to previewing the 2016 AFL Grand Final a bit later on in the episode. But coming up, I will be having a look back at preliminary final weekend. Of course, having a look at how the Sydney Swans and the Western Bulldogs got to this point. Of course, also coming up midway through the show, I'll be looking back at the Brownlow Medal on Monday night. But let's get stuck into the show. A preliminary final weekend. We start with Geelong and the Sydney Swans. So the first of the preliminary finals for 2016 was Friday night at the MCG between Geelong and the Sydney Swans. A lot of anticipation for this match to be an absolute cracker. Of course, Geelong were coming into this game as not heavy favourites, but strong favourites. I think a lot of people would have thought that they'd be able to win this, considering the season they've had. Of course, they did have a bit of a shaky game against the Hawks in that qualifying final, but I suppose a lot of people did think that this was their game to win, especially being at the MCG. But to be honest, it didn't turn out that way. In fact, it didn't turn out to be the cracker game that we expected, because the Sydney Swans came out and kicked 7 goals to Geelong's 5 behinds. They were goalless, at quarter time with just the 5 behinds. Absolutely incredible. I didn't expect that. Of course, we know that the Swans came out and did the same against the Crows in week 2 of the finals, but to do it second week in a row is just remarkable. So they really came out and entered the game in the first quarter, really, and it just went from there, really. Only 2 goals, Geelong to 8 behinds to the Swans 11-3. They had a good lead at half time. The Cats were just not in it all day. 3-quarter time, the Swans still leading 14-4 to Geelong 7-10, and then in the end, disappointing for Geelong, they lost the game, to be honest, pretty strongly. The final score, Geelong 8-12-60, defeated by the Sydney Swans 15-7-97. The goal kickers for the Cats, Taylor kicked 2, which is remarkable from a defender. Hawkins, Bartell, Selwood, Caddy, Dangerfield and Stanley kicked singles. And then the Swans goal kickers, Papperley kicked 3, Parker, Tippett and Franklin kicked 2. Rowan, we know that injury from the game against the Crows, you would have thought it would have shadowed his performance on Friday night against the Cats, but it didn't at all. He kicked 2. McGlynn, Heaney, Richards and Naismith kicked singles. So it was a very big win to the Swans. They were able to get through. They pretty much sealed the deal in the first quarter by kicking 7 goals to the Cats 0-5 in front of a crowd of just over 71,000 people at the MCG. Probably didn't get what we expected, but I thought throughout the whole entire match that it actually felt like a real big final, even though it was, to be fair, one-sided, because the Swans had the handle or the control over the game for pretty much the whole 4 quarters and the whole game. So the Swans through to the 2016 Grand Final. Of course, 2012 they made the grand final, then 2014 that was the one they lost, and now 2016. For the Cats, well, a disappointing end to the season. Of course, they wouldn't have expected to go out there and perform the way they did, but unfortunately it happened, and they're just going to have to look forward to next season, aren't they? Look ahead to next season, and hopefully from their point of view they can get back to this moment and hopefully get through from their point of view, because they have played some good football this year, but it just came down to that preliminary final where they just weren't good enough, and they were, to be fair, shaky in the qualifying final. Of course, it came down to the last kick, and of course Isaac Smith missed that, and the Cats were through, and yeah, just not the best performance in this one. So the Sydney Swans through to the 2016 AFL Grand Final. The final preliminary final of 2016 was at Spotless Stadium on Saturday night. It was between the GWS Giants and the Western Bulldogs. I must say that this was probably one of the most exciting and high anticipated preliminary finals I reckon we've had in some time, considering that it was between two young sides who have been up and coming in the last couple of years. Of course, like I mentioned last week, the GWS Giants, I didn't expect them to be at this point. In fact, I didn't even have them in the finals in my predictions. But geez, they've done well to get to this point. And well, the Western Bulldogs, you know, I don't think a lot of people, except for the Western Bulldogs supporter base, I don't think a lot of people would have expected them to be at the position that they were in going into this preliminary final. You know, 7th on the ladder. They had some crucial injuries during the year. Robert Murphy, Mitch Wallace, Jack Redpath. It's just amazing how they beat the West Coast Eagles and then the premiers of the last 3 years, Hawthorn, to get to this point. Now, a lot of controversy about the stadium, but looking back on it now, I think it worked out in the end. It was just so good to see the amount of Western Bulldogs supporters that travelled up the highway to be there at Spotless Stadium on Saturday night. It was so good, and the atmosphere, especially on TV, was fantastic, and I just can't imagine how good it would have been at the ground itself. So looking back on it now, I would have another final at Spotless Stadium if the GWS Giants were to deserve it. But anyway, getting into the game, it was a close first quarter. The Western Bulldogs had a 2-point lead. They did kick the first goal. It was 4 goals between the two sides, and the Western Bulldogs had a 2-point lead going in to the quarter-time break. 2-1 the Giants to the Dogs, 2-3. Things were about the same in the second quarter. It was a bit close. The Western Bulldogs probably had a couple of shots that they probably should have got, but they had a bit of a close lead at the half-time break. 6-5 to 6-5 the Western Bulldogs to the Giants. 5-2. The third quarter was no different. It was a tight tussle. It was the Giants in front by a point, 9-7 to 9-6. The Giants in the last quarter were able to get to about 14 points up at one stage, but then to the Dogs' credit, they were able to come back, and well, can you believe it? They came back, won by a goal, and they are through to the 2016 AFL Grand Final. The final score, the Giants 12-11, 83, defeated by the Western Bulldogs 13-11, 89. They are through to the 2016 Grand Final. And look, a lot of people would know that I'm a Western Bulldogs supporter. When this moment happened, I just couldn't speak. I had no words. I was stunned. I was excited. It was just probably one of the best moments I've felt, and I tell you what, I'm so excited for Saturday. But credit to the Giants as well. They've had an outstanding year, and obviously just couldn't make it through to the last week of the AFL season. The goal kickers for the Giants, Patton kicked 4. He was dangerous at times and played some good football in this game against the Dogs. Green kicked 3 as well as Lobb, and then D. Smith and Shaw kicked singles each. Just on Heath Shaw, a bit disappointed with his body language on the weekend. Not to mention his chirp to the Dogs players, but just that moment that they showed on TV where he was giving his players, I guess you could say, a spray, was very disappointing from someone who didn't have the best of games himself. So disappointing from the All-Australian defender of 2016. The Dogs goal kickers, Clay Smith, well, he had a big week, a sad week, and condolences to him, of course, on the passing of his friend, but credit to him, he came out and kicked 4 goals and had a best on ground performance, no doubt about that. Dixon kicked 4, Cordy kicked 2, and then Daniel Bonapelli and McRae, who kicked the final goal of the game, kicked singles each. So that was a game played in front of over 21,000 people. Actually, to be exact, 21,790 people at Spotless Stadium. I think that's quite good from a Spotless Stadium and Sydney point of view, but also from an AFL point of view, because of course the pressure was on them, of course, to schedule this game at this stadium, Spotless Stadium, and like I mentioned before, it did work out very, very well, and there shouldn't be any regrets whatsoever. So, I have no words. There you go. The Western Bulldogs through to the 2016 Grand Final, and it's going to be a great Grand Final. I hope it is. And from a Dogs point of view, from a supporter point of view like me, I hope they win. It would just be amazing. It would just top off one of the most incredible years. 7th injuries. What a story it would be if they won it. Okay, time now to look back at footy's night of nights, and that is the Brownlow Medal, which was held on Monday night, of course, the Monday before the AFL Grand Final, the Monday of AFL Grand Final week. And going into this Brownlow Medal count, the favourite, the strong favourite, was Geelong's Patrick Dangerfield. And, yep, you guessed it, he took out the 2016 Brownlow Medal on 35 votes. I remember watching Patrick Dangerfield in his first game for the Geelong Football Club in round 1 against the Hawks on Easter Monday, and played an outstanding game that day, and it's no surprise that he has collected the 2016 Brownlow Medal. It took him a bit of time to actually get into the lead and then take away the medal. It was closer than expected, but yeah, he won it by 9 votes, because Luke Parker, as you can see there, second on 26 votes. This is the top 10 we'll go through now. Dustin Martin from Richmond on third with 25 votes. He looked like he was challenging Patrick Dangerfield a little bit, but of course those losses at the back end of the season, especially those bad losses, probably costed him in the end. Rory Sloane, of course, couldn't win the Brownlow, of course, with that suspension against Port Adelaide in round 22, I believe it was. He came 4th, though, if you want to wipe off that X. 5th was Andrew Gaff on 21 votes. Dan Hanbury also 5th on 21 votes, as well as Adam Treloar from Collingwood. Good to see a pie in the top 10. On 8th is the Dogs' Marcus Bonapelli and Fremantle's Lockie Neal. And then rounding out the top 10 of the Brownlow Medal count was the Brownlow Medal leaderboard, I should say, was Robbie Gray from Port Adelaide on 19 votes. So there you have it, the 2016 Brownlow Medal, won by Patrick Dangerfield, and well deserved. And I was real fascinated and real intrigued and real interested in the speech that he gave at the conclusion when he won the Brownlow Medal, when they go up, and of course he's talking to Bruce McAvaney. I was quite intrigued, and I don't have any problems with this bloke. He is no doubt the best and fairest of 2016. He's a lovely guy, a very good player, and I admire him because he's a great footballer and just a great person. And that move from the Crows would have been tough, but of course he had to do it for his family, and it's worked out well because, well, in his first year at the club, he's won the Brownlow Medal for 2016 and will probably win the best and fairest at Geelong. Now, before we end the Brownlow Medal segment, I'll just go through some of the other awards won on Monday night. I'll start with the Goal of the Year. Eddie Betts won the Goal of the Year, of course, for that fantastic goal that he kicked. We all know that, and if you didn't see that goal, then hit on YouTube. YouTube's your friend there, or Google. Jimmy Bartell won the Jim Steins Community Leadership Award, of course, for his community work. And then rounding out the awards was Majak Dor winning that that mark of the year against Collingwood at the back end of the season. It was a terrific mark where he just leaped real high up in the air and took an absolute beauty. So there we have it, Brownlow Medal night for 2016, done and dusted for another year. Congratulations to Patrick Dangerfield and all the other award winners. Okay, footy fans, time to get in now to the most exciting part of this episode, and that is a preview of the 2016 AFL Grand Final. It will be at the MCG on Saturday the 1st of October between the Sydney Swans and the Western Bulldogs. The game will be kicking off at 2:30 p.m. You can watch all the action on 7 live and free. Now, the Sydney Swans are first for inside 50s in 2016 via the Western Bulldogs, who are first in disposals. So the Western Bulldogs are good at gathering the disposals, as opposed to the Sydney Swans, who get a lot of inside 50s. A few little things to mention. The Swans have won 3 of the last 5 games against the Dogs. However, the Dogs have won the last 2 encounters against the Swans. Both were at the Sydney Cricket Ground. The Dogs won the last final against the Swans. Their last final they played each other was 2010 at the MCG. The Dogs won by 5 points that day, so who knows, we might get another thrilling encounter again on Saturday. Of course, the Dogs have a 3-1 advantage over the Swans in finals. The Dogs, they're undefeated at the MCG this season. They've only played a few games there, but I think it's 3 in total off memory. But they've won all 3 of them, of course, and one of those was a couple of weeks ago against the Hawks in that semi-final. So they're undefeated at the MCG. Of course, the Swans won there last week, so it's not an issue. The ground's not an issue. Anyone can win on it. Any of these teams can win on this ground. And then the Swans, well, they probably have the upper hand in grand finals. A lot of these players in the Swans side probably has a lot more experience in grand finals. 2012, 2014, the most recent grand finals for them, every second year since 2012. It's worth mentioning. So they probably have the upper hand, but nonetheless, Hawks had probably the upper hand in when it comes to finals experience against the Dogs a couple of weeks ago, and the Dogs were able to beat them at a loud and noisy MCG. So, but obviously this is going to be a much bigger and more exciting experience in the semi-finals. So, look, the Dogs, the thing they probably have to watch out for is the fast start. Of course, the Swans, the last 2 matches they've played have been 7 goals kicked in the first quarter by them, and they've limited the goals for the opposition, and the game has been over by quarter time. So that's one thing the Dogs really need to watch out for, because it's been a concern for the 2 teams that the Swans have versed over the last couple of weeks. The Dogs, they'll obviously get a lot of midfield time. It will be all about their midfield with Bonampelli, Picken, Hunter, Johannesson, who's very, very quick, of course. The forward line will probably consist of Dixon and Clay Smith, who was outstanding against the Giants, and that's probably what the Swans need to watch out for, as well as the Dogs' midfield. Of course, Tom Boyd will play up in the forward line, as well as the ruck, and of course Jordan Roughhead, who we hope plays after that injury on Saturday night, will probably ruck and can also take big marks up in the forward line. And then for the Dogs, they need to watch out with the big guns, obviously Franklin and Tippett. Tippett, I thought, came back and did really well last week in the side against Geelong. Rowan, he was probably influential. Of course, Hanbury, Kennedy is big influential players in the midfield, and there's obviously a few others as well. Of course, Alea is going to probably miss out on the grand final on Saturday, which is unfortunate. Of course, injured himself on Saturday night, so Friday night rather. So that is fortunate from a Swans point of view and his point of view, because he's been a very good story. But look, it's going to be a great match. Look, I'm a Dogs supporter. I'm not going to go against the Dogs. I think they can win this. Anything's possible. They've gotten through the last 3 weeks being not favourites at all, and they've won all 3 of them. So anything's possible. I believe in the footy gods, and I believe in the Western Bulldogs. I think the Western Bulldogs can win this. It'll be a good game. I reckon it will be close all day. I hope it's close all day, because last year's grand final was probably disappointing. So I hope it's not like that. It's going to be a good day on Saturday. And before I end the preview, I just want to just give a mention to Dennis Cometti. Of course, we all know that he's been a commentator for so long now, obviously for Channel 7 in recent years. He will be retiring after Saturday. This will be his last call in the grand final on Saturday, which is real sad because his partnership with Bruce McAvaney ends. And if you know me personally, I admire a lot of the commentators in the world, and he's one of them. He's a fantastic bloke, a real great caller, and he will be missed. So if you're watching it on TV on Saturday, enjoy the game and enjoy his commentary for the last time, because you will not hear it again after that. So, big game coming up on Saturday. I cannot wait. The 2016 AFL Grand Final. You know I'm a Dogs supporter, so I'm going to say, go Dogs. Go Dogs. Go Dogs! And that is it for this special episode of the Ultimate AFL Show, the special Grand Final edition. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoy Saturday's Grand Final between the Sydney Swans and the Western Bulldogs. It's going to be a ripper. I hope it's a ripper. I'm so excited, I cannot basically contain my excitement. Don't forget to like, comment and share this video. Subscribe. I'll be back next week with a final episode of the Ultimate AFL Show to wrap up the 2016 AFL Grand Final. So join me next week for the final episode of the Ultimate AFL Show for 2016. Enjoy the Grand Final on Saturday, and once again, go Dogs. Bye for now.